The world of boxing is grieving the loss of a true icon, Ricky the Hitman Hatton, whose funeral has now become one of the most emotional and unforgettable moments in sporting history. Ricky Hatton was not just a fighter, he was a symbol of working-class pride, a man who carried his hometown of Manchester on his shoulders every time he stepped into the ring. His story wasn't one of privilege or glamour. It was the story of a kid who dreamed big, fought hard, and never lost sight of the people who supported him. The news of his passing left fans in shock, and now his funeral has become a place where those who loved him, family, friends, legends of the sport, and thousands of fans came together to honor a man who gave them everything. From the moment dawn broke, it was clear this would not be an ordinary funeral. Streets surrounding the church were filled with fans holding up banners, wearing the iconic blue and white of Manchester City, the football team Hatton famously supported and represented throughout his career. The sound of chants filled the air, chants that once rang out in packed arenas across the world when Ricky fought. "There's only one Ricky Hatton," they sang, a reminder that even in death, his legacy lives on in the voices of those he inspired. It felt less like a goodbye and more like one last grand entrance for the people's champion. Inside the church, the atmosphere was heavy with sorrow, but also filled with warmth and gratitude. Ricky's family sat at the front, clinging to one another for comfort, as tributes poured in from those who knew him best. Photographs of Hatton's greatest moments lined the walls. Him lifting world championship belts, embracing his sons after a fight, smiling with fans outside the gym. These weren't just images of a boxer, they were snapshots of a man who lived a life of authenticity and love. When the speakers began to share their memories, the room swelled with emotion. Friends spoke of Ricky's humor, his loyalty, and his generosity. Former trainers described his work ethic and how he poured every ounce of himself into preparing for battle, never once taking a shortcut. Opponents, some who travelled thousands of miles to be there, admitted that Ricky wasn't just a tough competitor, but a man who earned their respect long after the final bell. For many, Hatton wasn't defined by his wins or losses, he was defined by his heart. But the most stunning and unforgettable moment came when Mike Tyson, one of the greatest and most feared boxers in history, stood up to speak. Tyson, who is rarely seen in moments of such vulnerability, delivered a tribute that moved the entire audience to tears. His words weren't rehearsed or polished, they were raw, emotional, and straight from the soul. Tyson spoke of Ricky as more than a fighter. He called him a warrior of the people, a man who fought not for himself, but for everyone who believed in him. Tyson's voice cracked as he recalled watching Hatton fight, admiring not just his skill, but his determination. Ricky wasn't the biggest, he wasn't the strongest, but he had the biggest heart, Tyson said. He showed the world that greatness doesn't come from size, it comes from courage. The church fell silent as Tyson paused, visibly struggling to hold back his tears. In that silence, the weight of his words echoed louder than anything. Tyson, a man who has fought his own battles both in and out of the ring, had found inspiration in Ricky Hatton, and that revelation stunned everyone present. Tyson went further, describing how Ricky's connection with his fans made him different from so many others. He never forgot where he came from, Tyson said. He fought for his people, he gave them hope, and he gave them pride. That's why Ricky will never die, because he lives in the hearts of the people who loved him. It was a tribute that cut through the sorrow and reminded everyone why Hatton's legacy is so powerful. Outside of Tyson's stunning words, the service continued with tributes from fellow boxers, promoters, and even celebrities from outside the sport. Manny Pacquiao, one of Hatton's most famous opponents, sent a heartfelt message of respect, calling Hatton a true champion and a good man. Floyd Mayweather Jr., another rival who once shared the ring with Ricky, issued a statement praising Hatton's fighting spirit and acknowledging the mutual respect they had despite their competitive history. Promoter Frank Warren, who guided much of Ricky's career, spoke about his loyalty and how Hatton never once turned his back on the people who helped him rise to fame. But what made the day truly unique was the presence of the fans. Thousands lined the streets as the funeral procession passed by, holding up signs that read, "Forever our champion" and "Thank you, Ricky." Some carried gloves and memorabilia, while others simply raised their hands and clapped as a final gesture of respect. For many, Ricky wasn't just a boxer, he was a part of their... He represented them in the ring, and his victories felt like theirs. His defeats were felt collectively too, because Hatton always wore his emotions on his sleeve and shared his journey openly with the world. As the casket was carried out, chants once again filled the air. "There's only one Ricky Hatton!" The sound was deafening, and it was impossible not to feel the unity of thousands of voices joining together to say goodbye. Tears streamed down the faces of young and old alike, a powerful reminder that Hatton's story touched every generation. The legacy of Ricky Hatton cannot be confined to his boxing record, though that record alone is impressive. Winning world titles in multiple weight classes and facing some of the greatest fighters of his era. His true legacy lies in his authenticity. In a sport often dominated by egos and excess, Ricky stood out as someone who remained grounded. He trained in the same gyms, drank in the same pubs, and laughed with the same fans who cheered him on. He was never untouchable. He was one of them. That's why his loss hurts so deeply, because the world didn't just lose a champion, it lost a friend. Mike Tyson's tribute crystallized that truth. Tyson, a man who knows better than most what it means to be worshipped and misunderstood, saw in Hatton a kindred spirit, a man who lived for the love of the fight and the people. His words will be remembered not just as part of a funeral, but as part of the larger story of Ricky Hatton's life. Tyson reminded the world that Hatton's greatest victory wasn't any championship belt. It was the love, respect, and loyalty he earned from millions. As the funeral ended and the crowd slowly dispersed, there was a sense of closure but also a renewed sense of purpose. Ricky Hatton may be gone, but his spirit lives on in every aspiring fighter who laces up a pair of gloves, in every fan who believes in the underdog, and in every chant that will forever echo in stadiums and pubs around the world. There's only one Ricky Hatton. His story, his struggles, his triumphs, they will never be forgotten. Today, we say goodbye to a champion, a father, a friend, and a legend. Ricky Hatton's legacy will endure, not only in the history of boxing, but in the hearts of everyone who loved him. And thanks to the stunning tribute from Mike Tyson, his story has been elevated to a place where legends live forever.